Great. So thank you all for joining. We're going to get started here and walk through a little bit of an introduction on how Explore Analytics can help you kind of retire Excel-based reporting and move to something that's cloud-based, that's easy to use, and will get you to where you want to go from a reporting and analytics perspective. My name is Guy Yedwab. I'm VP of Sales and Marketing for Explore Analytics. Before I was with Explore Analytics, I was actually a senior solution consultant with ServiceNow. The founder of the company ran product development for ServiceNow from 2009 until 2012. And had a long history in business intelligence beforehand. So we're very dialed into what's going on with IT service management, and how reporting has been traditionally a significant pain for organizations and IT organizations. So what we heard while we were working with IT departments and folks throughout different organizations was as you're reporting, often you're running into walls of what you can do with reporting, whether it's system-based reporting or whether it's a business intelligence platform. And often Excel becomes the report building tool by default. But what we start to hear from our customers is, I'm spending hours each week in Excel building reports. People are asking for reports from each other. They have to wait for the data to be ported out to them, or they have to make sure that they have the updated spreadsheet. I've seen audit findings where, key decisions were made based on outdated versions of Excel spreadsheets. And often, when the person who's built the spreadsheet moves on, other people try to learn, how they built their macros and how everything was put together. And it's cumbersome. There's a lot of difficulty in building these reports together. So folks want to get to the next level of reporting and analytics maturity without compromising some of the ease and self-service that's there. So those were the problems that we wanted to solve with our platform. So what we have is Explore Analytics. It's a self-service analytics platform. And let me explain a little bit of what that means. The first is that it's an interactive data exploration tool that's accessible for any user. So it's not something that requires, a complex technical skill set. It doesn't require you to understand databases. It doesn't require you to write JavaScript or know SQL, right? The goal was for this to be a solution that you could put in the hands of people and they could really learn how to use for themselves. We support both real-time as well as trended. So real-time means rather than dumping data out of systems so you can do reporting, we're actually reaching to ServiceNow or to other applications and databases and running those reports live against the data. Or trended, if you wanted to snapshot that data and kind of build a historical backlog against that data that's there. But either way, it's really against the data itself, not against copies or dumps of that data. The whole solution is delivered software as a service, so it's all cloud-based, it's all based in the browser and very easy to use, and doesn't require any downloads or installations on servers or agents, on people's laptops. And then the last is specific to the IT and IT service management world. We have some out-of-the-box analytical applications that can help get you started with reports that are very common and people want to see, that go beyond the reporting that you can do today. So the reason that we're here is to do a few things. The first is to empower collaboration and make it very easy for teams to be building reports in a way that is much more seamless than sending around Excel spreadsheets and having people build those reports individually themselves. The second is making it very quick and simple to answer those questions. And the third is, once you have those reports, being able to use them to actually drive improved behavior by how you're distributing and how you're publishing those reports. And let me talk a little bit about each of those. So in terms of empowering collaboration, the first is that our ability to use live data cuts through a lot of the complexity and overhead that Excel and Excel spreadsheets bring in. So there's not going to be debates about, are we using the current spreadsheet? Is this the right data? Do I need to dump the data out? Or how do I merge in additional data into my spreadsheet? Instead, we're connecting straight to the source of truth, whether that's ServiceNow or whether that's another system that might be equally relevant. Secondly, that allows you to define the reports once, and the data as it changes updates itself. So once you've built a report, you can set it, move on, and not have to constantly be revisiting the reports you've already built to update the data, update for changes in the schema, etc., etc. You can build the report once and let the data define itself. And the second is it's web-based and it's interactive. So when multiple people want to work on the same report, they're going into the same place, using the same controls, and updating the same report itself. And you can push that to dashboards. There's a lot of flexibility that even just as a viewer, you have a lot of interactive controls. So it makes it very easy for you to put this in front of teams, put it in front of people, and let them kind of build what they need and interact with what they need, and all be working from the same report. It's also very quick to do. So the user interface is much more streamlined and easy to use. It's just drag and drops and drop downs. And as you run the report, you get the report results immediately. So you can kind of see what you're doing in real time and get a sense of, is this what I wanted or is that what I wanted? Secondly, we make it very easy to connect to data. So being able to set up, within minutes, not days or weeks. We had a Fortune, 100 company that within an hour of finding us, watched a couple YouTube videos, and they were live in production showing some aging reports to their management. And those were live aging reports, not, copies of data that had just been pulled out of the system. So it allows you to get moving very quickly, to combine data across data sources, and if you have data in Excel that you want to include in this reporting, very easily load that in and get the advantage of that temporary data as part of the data you're running. And the way that we're able to do this is we approach reporting somewhat differently than other solutions. Right now, we have our cloud-based Explore Analytics solution, and we have, there's SQL relational databases or, ServiceNow or temporary data, and we connect to them live using standard drivers. So if you want to run a query to ServiceNow, you create your report, we call to ServiceNow and display the information immediately. So there's a couple advantages. One that we've touched on is the fact that those reporting will be live. They won't be kind of stale, point in time dumps of data. Secondly, because we're making these calls live through the API, we can actually apply ServiceNow security. So you don't have to worry about, is the viewer of this report have the same rights and access as the person who prepared this report. When they look at the report, they'll only see what they have the right to see. So if you have a domain separated environment, or if you have access and security rules, and you want to make sure that when you give it to person A, they see their location, but you give it to person B, they see their location, that's all built into the solution. You don't have to do additional fine tuning and refining to the reporting. So it makes it very easy to connect to these sources of data, and as we'll see, also combine data between those data sources, which is something that can be, painful even with Excel or even with business intelligence tools. We make that very streamlined. And then once you've connected to those data sources, we want to make that reporting, very actionable, very easy to use. So, sitting on dashboards where people are already working, embedded in intranet portals or other places where people are already looking for data, rather than, chaining them to their email, waiting for your spreadsheet to arrive via email. And those are drillable and live reports, so they can actually take action on them. So, we had a customer that had a delinquent tasks report. They wanted to show people the top delinquent tasks. Once they put that in front of people in a live way on their dashboards, very quickly they saw 30% reduction in those tasks because it was something that people could take action on. And you can get to that next level of analytics, so not only are people taking action on it, but they're taking action on the next level of reporting, whether it's, visually the next level through things like scorecards or conditional formatting, or whether it's calculations, trending, aging reports, data from multiple data sources that allows your users to be working based off of smarter and better prepared data. And you can drive that behavior using some of our pre-built analytical applications. So our ITSM analytical application starts with, the core things that incident, problem, change, the service catalog, and the knowledge-based needs. Aging reports, SLA, availability, user demand analysis, team management, and work management. Really, the things that we've seen that customers very often are doing day one if they're approaching IT service management. And then something that we built alongside ServiceNow's product management is IT financial management. So if you're trying to distribute costs to business services, understand the cost of service, or really kind of combine that data together, we make it very easy for you to kind of pull all that information into one source. So that's what I wanted to cover from kind of an overview perspective before I transition to actually the live demonstration, which I'm very eager to get to. Are there any questions in terms of how we connect to the data and how we present that data live, that's different from kind of dumping data out into Excel and building things manually there? Great. So as I continue into the live demo, if there are questions, feel free to use the chat functionality that's available in WebEx. That will allow me to kind of see that, and I'll be able to answer those questions. So right now I'm in the report building view of Explore Analytics, and I want to show a couple examples that we've seen really make a big difference for customers in terms of how easy it is to build a report and how easy it is to get some of those things that they're used to building in Excel, so that you no longer have to rely on those static dumps of information. You can actually quite easily get those reports in a live and interactive way. So I'm going to create a brand new report. I'm going to go to File and click New View. I'm going to select my ServiceNow data source that we've set up in Explore Analytics and look at the incident table and call this My Live Aging Report. And we're going to make this a pivot table so that we can do some multi-level pivot analysis. That's something that ServiceNow is quite limited with, and a lot of solutions struggle with, is being able to do this kind of very simple multi-level analysis. So I've made this selection against the table. I now have this live report that I'm building, and right now it's just showing me the count of incidents, and it's not really grouped by anything. But over here in the available fields, I can see all of the fields on the table, and then also related tables associated to that. So if I wanted to group this by assignment group, and then group this by the assigned to, you'll see as I drag and drop, we're actually immediately running that query to the system, and then bringing back the results to here. So if I say, you know what, the assigned to makes this report a little too long, I can remove that. Let's say category instead. So now I'm seeing by assignment group, by category, the number of open incidents, and that's done by count. But let's say I actually wanted to make this into an aging report, right? So instead of showing all of them, I'm going to go to filter data and say, well, show me just the ones where active is currently true. And I'm going to group this together by how long it was since it was created. So if I drag the creative into the columns, you'll notice that because this is a date time field, I have the ability to kind of group this together by year, by quarter, by year and by quarter, for example, so I could see when it was created. But for this aging report, I actually want to group it together based on how long it's been since it was created. So I'm going to say treat the date as an age field, because this is going to be an aging report. And we'll say from 0 to 1 day or 2 days, 2 to 5 days, and then 5 days plus. So 0 to 2, 2 to 5, and 5 days plus. Now this didn't require any code. It didn't require, we had one customer that this screen replaced a page full of SQL commands. You're really just saying, what spans of time do you want, and you could add as many or as few as you want. So when I click OK, it's now going to run that report again and group it into these bins. So I can see here all the ones where it's 0 to 2 days, and these are the ones where it's more than 5 days. So it was very easy for me to just quickly put that together and be able to see that very easily. Now I've got quite a few different numbers here, so maybe I want to actually look at this in a slightly different way, which is I want to go to I want to see not just how many of these incidents are there, but what is that as a percent of the queue that it's in. So for the assignment group database, how many of it are database issues, how many of it are hardware, etc. So I'm going to click the pencil icon where I'm modifying this count field, and I'm going to say let's display that as let's do that as a percent of the row. So now for the database team, in the category database, 8% of them are between 0 and 2 days old, and more than 5% of them are, or sorry, more than 90% of them are over 5 days old. And I can click to exclude the more than 5 days old because actually, maybe that doesn't matter so much, and you'll see that that added a breadcrumb here. So it makes it very easy for me to see the data, add the data, remove the data in this multi-level pivot in this very live way. And if I wanted to format this, I can also add a coloring rule to say, if it's, let's say, less than 10%, then we're going to make that green. And if it's more than 10%, we're going to make that yellow, just for example. Right, so just very easily, starting with some colors, and you can see here that, everyone seems to be, keeping it fairly low, but immediately it jumps out to me that the hardware and the network team, more than 10% of their work is in the 0 to 2 days category. So maybe we need to reassign some of that work, maybe we need to, bring on some additional, hands or work some overtime to lower that queue. But it immediately draws my attention to the places where we're beyond that. And again, one of the things I want to drive home is where you may be familiar with doing this kind of multi-level pivot in Excel. This data is live and it's up to the minute. It's going to update as the data updates, and I can actually drill through to see the details on that particular row, and it's going to take me to kind of this list view of the information that's here. So now I can see these are the incident numbers. Here's the callers. And I can actually click and it'll open up the incident within ServiceNow that's associated to that. So you're always able to drill down to the details and then be able to actually take action on that report. Right? So it's not just about knowing what's going on, but it's being able to take action and improve what's going on that's going to get you better results on your KPIs. Now, in addition to being able to do these kind of multi-level pivots and do some formatting, another really key capability that we have is the ability to do some calculations against this. So let's say I'm looking actually at a list of these incidents, and we're going to filter that on active is true. And I'm actually going to add an additional filter that says, and it was created during this week, just so that we have a fairly manageable little set of data to look at. So now I've got these are the incidents that are currently active and were created this week. So I can add, as we were saying before, any of the fields that we were looking at earlier, and any of those related fields to this list. But in some cases, suppose I actually want to bring together and create kind of a calculated column here. Right, so let's suppose I wanted to actually put the values of two fields together, so that I can really understand more, or format this in a way that my stakeholders are interested in seeing. So let's create a new calculated column, and we're actually going to do what we call concatenate. Right, so this is a calculation that's going to put together multiple values, and we're going to say the number fields, and add a little dash, and then put in the short description, just to create kind of one. We'll call this our identifier field. And I'm going to quickly hide the short description and the number field. And now I can move the identifier column to the first column of this report. So you see that just by creating that little calculated column, that allows me to very easily create a new column based on columns that already exist. I can also do that with any of these other functions. So for example, if I wanted to create a duration, or if I wanted to for instance, round a field, or truncate a value. It's very easy for me to do some of these. I can also do a lookup that's very easy to look up onto another table. and all of these functions allow you to add these new columns to this report that you're building and be able to very easily build these reports with these calculated values. So this is an example of calculations in the list, but we do want to drive home the fact that these calculations are kind of available everywhere. So if I go back to the pivot, and you'll notice that it's still holding on to this pivot that I was looking at before. Let's return this back to counts. And let's say that in addition to the count, we're also going to have a reassignment count. So this is actually summing up, all of the places where we had reassignments, there. So now I have the count and I have the total number of reassignments. Now, because these are both numeric, we can actually do a calculation here to say, all right, let's divide the reassignment count across the count of issues that are there. Again, it's a very simple formula builder, similar to, adding, dividing, multiplying, subtracting. And we'll call this, our new little ratio field. So now, and I want to stress again, this is a live calculation that's going against data, in this case from Servicenow, that's pulling together two different ways of counting the information and then providing this as a ratio. And as people are reassigning tickets, as new tickets are being opened, this column is actually going to update live and give you that up-to-the-minute information. Now, as we're building these live calculations, these multi-level pivots, so this is an up-to-the-minute live calculation. Maybe we want to actually take a look at that historically and see how this ratio changes over time. What I can do is go to File and say Track Trend. And what this is going to do is create a table within Explore Analytics that store the results of this report automatically on a schedule. So My Live Aging Trend Report, and click a schedule that goes daily, weekly, or monthly. So let's say every week at the beginning of Sunday, we're going to snapshot this report and save it within Explore Analytics. So whereas in an Excel report or in a manually defined report, you may have to rebuild this report or copy and paste, keep dumping data and manually rebuilding this report. Instead, we're automating the process of collecting this information and presenting that information. So once you build this report, it's ready to go and you can put this in front of people and it's very easy to continue to distribute. Now, once we've got these reports, this is really powerful, being able to put reports against a table, but we also have something that can really take this to the next step, which is something that we call the mashup view. So let's suppose I have some data within one table and some data within another table that I want to put together. In Excel, this can mean downloading multiple sets of data, putting them in the same worksheet and kind of building them that way. With other methods, it's going to require you to do database manipulation or code to be able to deliver that. From our perspective, we've made this very simple, which is we've introduced something called a mashup view. And what a mashup view is a combination of two or more reports that you've already defined that could be from multiple tables or multiple data sources. So if I want to see my trend of calls and incidents, right, I want to see, how are the calls over time combined with the incidents over time. So I'm going to go for a report that I have called calls mashup input and one called trend of incidents closed by month. So these are two timeline reports that I've already defined, and the mashup view is actually going to combine them together into one report. So you can see here, that I have here the trend of calls and the trend of closed incidents. When I click Edit Mashup, I can see these are the two reports that were put into it. And you'll see that one is actually a live report from Servicenow. The other one is actually an uploaded spreadsheet that we uploaded into Explore Analytics. So if I look into this report, it's, this is the number of calls, grouped by month, and I could further group it by something like, the call type or the company that it came from. And, now I can see this in one place, in one set of data. And furthermore, I can still do those calculations. So if I want to do that ratio of, incidents per call, I now have that as a single ratio, and I could focus on that and see, just this calculated metric of incidents per call. So just to drive this home, we're pulling data from two different data sources into one visual report, and it didn't require an administrator to set anything up. It didn't require any coding or scripting. This is something that any user could do against the data that you make available to them. So that's something that's very easy for a user to pull that information together, put it together in a very quick way and be able to understand that and get those kinds of reports. So with that capability, you can really get to kind of very next level reporting. So for instance, cost per incident, pulling together the number of incidents and the number of expenses. Or if you wanted incidents per user, right? Again, we're combining the number of incidents to the number of user and doing some calculations that's telling you more about the data, but in a way that's live, where everyone's dealing from the same source of truth. And it's interactive, and I can drill down into the data that sits behind it and kind of see what's going on. Now I want to talk a little bit more about this interactivity for a moment, because this is part of the key of making this very actionable and very easy to use. So we talked about the ability to drill through to the data that sits behind a report. So for instance, if I go back to my incidents by category and priority. All right, so let's say I have this report that's breaking down incidents by category and by priority. What that's going to allow me to do is, I can now click to drill through to view details. But you'll notice I have a few other options here. I can actually drill down to the caller's department or drill down to the category. So if I say, well, just show me the critical incidents for Database San Diego and drill down to the category, now I'm not going down to the list, I'm actually going down to another report that's showing me here are all the priority 1 incidents across all the assignment groups, now grouped by category. And I can drill down again to say, okay, well now show it to me by subcategory. And we're going to see the same report kind of drill down to subcategory. So you can see that it's very easy for me to go from the broadest view of data down to another drill down to another drill down. And if I go back using my breadcrumb back to the top level, I can, follow other drill down paths. Now this is very useful, right? It's allowing you to put a lot of data in one report rather than having to create 10 different kinds of reports and then also have a horizontal report for people who like that and stack it for people who like that. Put the value breakdowns on this. Again, this is all things that the user who's viewing the report can configure. How do they want to drill down and how do they want to get into this? The person who's building the report can very easily define those drill down paths. So here's department, here's categorization. I could also say, show it to me by, the company and then, by the company's, location, for example. Right, so just by filling in these little windows, I can actually define how you drill into that and how you get further into the data. We also have this concept of an animation, and what the animation is it allows you a drop down that allows you to basically select between either different assignment groups or different categories. So for example, if I now select the location field and include all, what that adds is a little drop down that my users can use to say, okay, by assignment group and by priority, let's switch this in between different locations. So all of that allows me a very quick ability to be able to switch between different groups and locations. So once I have these drop downs and these kind of published views, I have the ability to now put this in front of users. So all of the interactive controls in the world and all of the live reports are not really going to be helpful unless I can get it in front of the users who need to use this data. So what I can do is I can go to File and say Publish. And I have a few options. The first is I can publish this live interactive report so the person who sees it, the data will update for them. Or in some cases, I can also publish it as a frozen report. So let's say this is a quarter end report for an executive, or I'm giving this to, to someone to for an audit purpose, whatever that purpose is, I can have it either live or frozen. I can also determine, does the user need to log in to see the view? If it's not logged in, they won't be able to drill down to the data that sits behind this report, but they will be able to see the aggregates and the report. And then for ServiceNow, I also have the ability to publish this in a way that any user can use. So can add to their ServiceNow dashboards. And I'll show what that looks like from the ServiceNow side. So I say, okay, I'd like to add this to ServiceNow. We're going to call it Dashboard Incidents by Priority and Category. And then if I wanted to hide or show some of these controls, so for example, if I wanted to hide the legend that's at the bottom, I can just check that off. When I click Finish, I'll get a few different versions of this. So one is I'll get a URL that I can send to anyone so that they'll see the exact same report that I published. I can also embed this, so if I wanted to put this in a SharePoint portal or some other HTML intranet portal, I can. And what it's going to look like is it's going to look like this report, right? So it's going to be able to fluidly resize based on the size of my screen. It'll work on mobile and tablet and all those other formats, and it'll be quite easy for users to use. And then if I switch over to my ServiceNow instance, you'll see that this is my out-of-the-box ServiceNow dashboard with some of these gauges of content already added. I can go and I can click Add Content and click Explore Analytics, and I can find under the letter D, Dashboard Incidents by Category and Priority. And I can add that wherever I want on my dashboard. So I'm going to put it right up top, front and center, and it resizes to take up the space that I want on my dashboard. And now I can do that drill in and be able to go down to that list view of the live data directly on my dashboard. So you'll see that it was very easy for me to build this report, create some interactive controls that are very easy for users to use, and then publish it to the dashboard where the user is actually working every day, right? They don't have to go out into the world and find it. They can actually come straight to this dashboard. And then a couple things that are really key about this dashboard. When I log into ServiceNow, I'm going to be automatically logged into Explore Analytics. So all of these reports that we're seeing, they're going to be protected by authentication. Rather than an Excel spreadsheet where the data is static and you see what you see, if I come and I look as a group manager's overview, these reports that have been published to me as a group manager are going to be filtered based on who I am. So here's my team's task load. Here's tasks approaching breach assigned to my team. Here's my team's breached SLAs. And it knows who I am and is filtering the data. So I don't have to go through the work of actually rebuilding this, for different groups or different people in Excel. I can actually show users the information that's relevant to them at the time that they want it. And that's part of the power of having a live and an interactive integrated solution rather than something that's dealing with static copies of the data. So the last thing I wanted to touch on is the ability to actually upload data from different data sources, so or connect to data sources live, because we've talked about ServiceNow, we've talked about some other data sources, but the key is that it's very easy for us to be able to do that. So for example, if I wanted to upload a new data file, it's really just as simple as coming here, selecting that file, and it'll create that file in Explore Analytics. But if I wanted to do something more complicated, like connect to a new ServiceNow data source or a new MySQL data source, I can come in here and say I'd like to add a new data source for ServiceNow. There's an update set that holds our integration that you apply to ServiceNow, and then you fill in some information about your environment, and then we will set up that data source once, and you won't have to build or modify it, again, just perhaps occasionally refreshing it as you make changes to that. The key is we're going to discover your ServiceNow environment. So any custom fields, any custom tables that you have, we will immediately be able to report against. And it'll all be part of what's available. So you can see here I have a custom table called carriage return, custom table called generator bundle. These are all tables that I can report against immediately and natively as part of Explore Analytics. So you don't have to go into the question of what data do I need to pull out of ServiceNow or what data do I need to do X, Y, or Z. We're going to be able to report against any of those tables, but we don't have to store that data within Explore Analytics. And the same is true for if you have a MySQL database that's storing, call information, or an Oracle database that's hosting your monitoring data. So there, we have either an agent that allows us to connect within your network, or if it's available for direct connection, we can connect directly. And then you say, which agent process do you want us to connect through, and then provide information about what user and what database we're connecting to. So again, this can be very quick setups that's on the scale of minutes rather than days or weeks to be able to connect to that. So over the last few minutes, we've really been able to cover, from start to finish, building your reports using a lot of, key, multi-level pivoting and reporting capabilities that might be absent in ServiceNow or in other systems today. We saw how you can then take this live reporting and either snapshot it over time or build the live reports and publish it to ServiceNow or to other sources and make it really interactive so that you can build a report, put it in front of people, and not really have to worry or spend more manual time on that moving forward. So now I'm going to open it up to questions for folks who have been spending a lot of time either using the chat menu or if you want to speak up is there anything that I didn't cover or you want me to go a little deeper into that would help you understand how you can get rid of Excel and have a new approach to reporting? Great. So I see a question that's in the chat about service catalog in ServiceNow. So for those of you who use ServiceNow, there's a little bit of a special case that comes around what are called Servicenow Variables, which are not stored as fields within ServiceNow. They're stored as kind of values within the record. And long story short, they can be a bit of a pain of ServiceNow within ServiceNow. So this is a very common question that I get kind of as part of that. So the way that it works is we actually support ServiceNow catalog variables natively. So if I'm going and I'm building a report against the requested item table, and this, by the way, works also for incident variables or change variables, but let's say I wanted to create a pivot report called my computers by operating system and hard drive size. So we're going to run a live report against this information, and I'm going to filter data on where the variables and the hard drive variable is not empty, and under variables the OS variable is not empty. So now we're going to show just the items where we have those two different variables available. Oh, and actually, let me also filter this on where the category, the items category is requests computers and handhelds or request application infrastructure, just so that we're dealing with a more straightforward set of items. So you'll see that there are 13 items that have the hard drive variable or the operating system variable, and then these are the categories that it falls underneath. And I can say, all right, let's group that by the item, and then let's also group that by the variable operating system and also the variable hard drive. Great. So this allows me, as you can see, to run that report using the service catalog variables. Again, it's live and it's up against the information, and we're breaking that up by item in a very quick way. So I can see one development laptop had Red Hat Linux. So you can see, by the way, that whereas ServiceNow has started to introduce some very limited, we can actually do the same variable across multiple items and combine it with multiple other variables. So it's really unlimited what you can do with those service catalog variables. Yeah, so there's a great question. For those of you who are currently using, ServiceNow's reporting, there's something that allows you to have basically dynamic filters. So if you wanted to say for my assignment group or for my work, how do you define that? And the way that you do that within ServiceNow is using what's called dynamic filters, where you can actually put in basically a little JavaScript function into the filter. Now we've tried to make as much of this not require those kinds of filters as possible, but if you're currently using them and you want to know if Explore Analytics can use them, we actually can use them in exactly the same way. And the reason is because we're running this through ServiceNow's API, we're handing that query to ServiceNow and it's understanding JavaScript get my user. So that's filtering on where the assigned to's manager is me. Based on my login and my time logged in. So that's definitely an excellent question, and it's a very common one. And yeah, you can absolutely just use that exactly the way that you're using that in ServiceNow, and it'll just work. Are there any other questions or use cases that folks are interested in finding out more? Great. So a question a little bit more about how you can try this out and be able to use this. So if you go to exploreanalytics.com and you click on try it free, this takes you to exploreanalytics.com register. There's actually a free 30-day evaluation. This 30-day evaluation isn't limited in any way. It's fully featured, and within 30 days. And so you can try it against your ServiceNow dev environment or against other relational databases, and you can, try that immediately for free. If you are trying that out, you can, from within the reporting solution within Explore Analytics, under help, you can go to the user's guide to find our wiki. You can go to video tutorial and find video tutorials there. And you can reach out to us via email. We're always happy to help you, understand your use cases and figure out how we can help get you started with that. So a question that came in is, can we connect directly to SharePoint lists to pull in data? That's something that that is a feature that's on our roadmap. We haven't implemented that quite yet, but that is something that we have heard from existing customers and will be introducing soon. We've talked a lot about kind of the functionality that's available, and so if you're interested in new features or things that we don't have, we're very driven by our customers and what's requested from our customers, right? So we for example, we had a customer who the way that they were using things was using a Pareto chart. That's the way that their CIO and CTO communicated about the data, and because that was something that was a very high priority for them and would drive a lot of value to our customers, we definitely prioritize that as a new feature. So SharePoint list is definitely something that we're interested in tackling. Any other questions? We will have, I just saw the question, we will have a recording of this WebEx available, and it will be sent to everyone who attended this, as well as posted if you go to video tutorials where we have our videos, or on our YouTube channel, we will have that video posted as well. Great. Are there any other questions? Great. Well, thank you all for your time today as part of this webinar. Hopefully you've been able to see, the key capabilities that we have that will allow you to be able to replace Excel by empowering folks to collaborate, allowing folks to answer questions quickly, and really, publish that to dashboard so that you can drive improved behavior. So if there's any follow-up questions, or if any one of you want to schedule a follow-up where we could do a demo and look at your particular use cases one-on-one, we're always happy to do that. We want to make sure that you're able to get the kinds of reports that you want in a very easy way. So thank you everyone for joining. Good luck, and good luck retiring Excel.